Picture this. You finally check your bank account, and instead of that familiar stomach drop, you feel something completely different. Calm, confidence, maybe even a little smile. And the wild part is, this shift does not happen at $100,000 or half a million. It happens at 20,000. Yeah, 20 grand. And today, I want to talk about exactly why that number is the one that nobody really seems to talk about, and why crossing it changes the entire game for you. Now, before we get into this, let me be clear. This is not just about having more money sitting in a bank account. This is about a fundamental shift in how you think, how you work, how you make decisions, and how your money actually behaves once you reach this level. So whether you are at $5,000 right now, or you just crossed the 15,000 mark and wondering why it does not feel different yet, stick around because this is going to reframe everything for you. Let us start with the first reason why 20,000 is such a pivotal number, and it comes down to how money actually grows. Most people understand compound interest on a surface level. Yeah, your money makes money. Cool concept. But the difference between 10,000 and 20,000 in an investment account is not just double the returns. It is the moment when compound interest stops feeling like a math concept and starts feeling like a real-life advantage. Think about it this way. If you have $10,000 earning an 8% annual return, you are generating around $800 per year. That is roughly $66 a month. Not nothing, but let us be honest, it is not exactly life-changing. Now double that to 20,000, and suddenly you are looking at $1,600 per year from that same 8% return. Over $130 every single month flowing into your account without you doing any extra work. You did not get a raise. You did not pick up an extra shift. Your money just did that on its own. And here is where it gets genuinely exciting. The timeline to your next 20,000 shrinks dramatically. If you started from zero saving $500 a month with an 8% return, your first 20,000 takes roughly 35 months. But your second 20,000? That only takes about 26 months. Why? Because that original 20,000 is still in the game, still compounding, still earning returns alongside your new contributions. Every milestone after that gets faster. At 400,000 in your portfolio, you can generate another 20,000 in about 5 months. At $1 million, you can hit that same amount in a single quarter. The math does not change. The scale does. Now here is where it gets psychological, and this is the part that most financial content completely glosses over. $20,000 does something to your brain that 10,000 simply does not. When you have 10,000 saved, and you hit an unexpected expense, maybe your car breaks down, or you have a medical bill, you dip into your savings and suddenly you are back in four-figure territory. That is a gut punch. It feels like going backwards. It triggers that scarcity mindset all over again. But at 20,000, that same emergency happens, and you are still standing firmly above that 5-figure mark. And that psychological buffer is enormous. Research actually backs this up. Vanguard found that having just $2,000 in emergency savings boosts financial well-being by 21%. $2,000, creating a 21% improvement in how people feel about their entire financial situation. Now imagine what 6 months of living expenses, which for many people lands somewhere near that 20,000 mark, actually does to your sense of security. It adds another 13% on top of that. You are not just wealthier. You are operating from a completely different mental baseline. And that brings me to the third reason this number matters so much, which is what it does to your career options. Think about what it actually feels like to be stuck in a job you genuinely dislike when you have no savings cushion. You cannot push back, you cannot say no, you cannot ask for the raise you deserve because the fear of losing that paycheck overrides everything else. You need that job, and deep down, your employer knows it. That is a terrible negotiating position to be in. But 20,000 in the bank changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, you have what I like to call breathing room money. If a job becomes genuinely toxic, whether it is mentally draining, physically harmful, or just completely misaligned with where you want to go in life, you actually have options. If you can manage your living expenses at around $2,000 to $3,000 per month, 20,000 gives you anywhere from 6 to 10 months of runway. That is enough time to find something better. Enough time to pivot into a different industry, get a certification, or even test a business idea you have been sitting on. And here is the thing that surprised me when I really thought about it. Often you do not even need to use that money. Just knowing it is there changes how you show up. You become more confident. You negotiate differently. You stop tolerating things you should not be tolerating. That quiet confidence actually accelerates your career growth, which in turn grows your income, which means your savings grow faster. It is a positive feedback loop that starts the moment you cross that threshold. The fourth reason is something that does not get nearly enough attention, and that is the hidden cost of having less money. When you are financially stretched, everything costs more as a percentage of what you earn. Take overdraft fees. In 2022 alone, banks collected nearly $10 billion in overdraft charges from customers. $10 billion. And some individuals got hit more than 30 times in a single year. Each charge is $35. On its own, that sounds manageable. But when you are already living close to the edge, those fees are not just annoying, they are destabilizing. Then there are account maintenance fees, like the $12 per month some major banks charge unless you maintain a minimum balance. If you are bouncing around in low four figures, you might be paying that every single month. And beyond banking, there are other real costs that come with having less. Not being able to buy in bulk because you cannot front the cost of a Costco run, even though buying in bulk can save you 20 to 30% on groceries. Buying cheaper items that fall apart faster and need to be replaced more often. Paying car or home insurance monthly instead of annually and missing out on the discount you would get for paying up front. These are all ways that being financially stretched makes things cost more. 20,000 starts to insulate you from these traps in a meaningful way. Now let us talk about what 20,000 actually unlocks in terms of investment options, because this is where you officially cross into what I call the investor class. At $10,000, you are getting started. But at $20,000, you have enough to build a real foundation. You can fully fund a Roth IRA, which in 2025 allows contributions of $7,000 per year, and still have $13,000 left over. Try doing that when your total savings is $10,000. You are giving up 70% of your entire financial cushion just to max it out. That is not a real choice. With $20,000, you can also start building a genuinely diversified portfolio. You can explore different asset types, add bonds, look at REITs, dig into specific ETFs that match your strategy. Some index funds require minimum investments of $3,000 just to get in. With $20,000, those doors are open. A simple, solid breakdown might look something like this. $7,000 in a Roth IRA in index funds, $8,000 set aside as a real emergency fund, $2,000 in checking for day-to-day life, and $3,000 in a taxable brokerage for additional market exposure. That structure gives you both security and growth potential at the same time. And there is one more piece to this that might be the most underrated benefit of all. The discipline it takes to save $20,000, especially from scratch, is actually proof of something bigger. It proves that you can delay gratification. There is a famous experiment from Stanford in the 1970s where children were given a choice between one marshmallow immediately or two marshmallows if they waited 15 minutes. The researchers then tracked those same kids for years. The ones who waited consistently outperformed their peers academically, professionally, and in life outcomes. One of them was actually Susan Wojcicki, the late CEO of YouTube, who her mother described as showing more self-restraint than any other child in the study. Saving $20,000 is your marshmallow test. Every month you contributed instead of spending. Every time you said not yet to something you wanted. Every raise or side hustle income you channeled into savings instead of lifestyle upgrades. That discipline does not disappear once you hit the goal. It becomes part of who you are, and the person who knows they can control their money is the person who will keep building from here. So if you are not at $20,000 yet, 3 things. First, know exactly where you stand. Calculate your net worth. Know what comes in and what goes out every single month. You cannot navigate without a starting point. Second, track every expense for 30 days. Most people find $200 to $500 in monthly spending they did not even realize was happening. Third, play offense. Ask for a raise if you have earned it and have not asked in a while. Pick up a side hustle. Sell what you are not using. Every dollar you can funnel toward this goal right now is worth more than you think, because it is not just saving money. It is building the foundation of a completely different financial life.